Most people believe prisons are where drugs finally get stopped. Locked doors, constant surveillance, total control. But that isn't what happens. Drugs are everywhere inside, in some cases more dangerous than outside. Entire markets exist behind the walls, so something's not right. If the most controlled environments in society can't stop drug use, then what exactly is prohibition doing? And if it isn't working there, why do we believe it will work somewhere else? Drugs and Addiction, an Anarchist Perspective, Dickie Dredd. This is part 61 in the video series, and we're still on chapter 8, Propaganda, Fear and the Myth of the Addict. Section 62, says 61 there, sorry, that's a mistake, should say 62. Behind bars, Prohibition's last frontier. Prisons are the perfect test of prohibition, sealed environments built for control, and yet they fail the test completely. If drugs cannot be kept out of a high security institution, what hope exists in the open world? The contradiction exposes the moral theatre of enforcement. Inside, the official line remains zero tolerance. In practice, a managed market flourishes behind every wall. Wardens turn a blind eye, not out of corruption, but pragmatism. Tranquilised inmates are easier to govern than restless ones. The result is a paradoxical ecosystem where punishment depends upon the substance it forbids. The state's addiction to control reproduces itself most clearly here. As argued earlier, psychiatry's empire began by translating behaviour into pathology. The prison repeats that translation through discipline. Both institutions claim to reform the individual while profiting from their containment. Inmates who use are not treated as patients but as liabilities, a category to be managed, tested and sanctioned. Yet testing itself has become a ritual of reassurance rather than prevention, an administrative loop that proves the system's vigilance while guaranteeing its failure. During the years my own son spent inside for dealing, I witnessed how this hypocrisy functions. Cannabis was easy to find, tobacco, now banned, was currency, and when the supply chains tightened, synthetic cannabinoids, spice, filled the gap. The shift was predictable. Repress one market and another, more dangerous one emerges. Prisoners who once smoked to ease anxiety now writhed on concrete floors under a fog of chemical hallucination. Guards called it chaos. I saw it as the inevitable mutation of prohibition. Spice insisted because policy demanded an undetectable substitute. What looked like moral collapse was, in fact, bureaucratic success. Drone deliveries have become the modern symbol of this absurdity. Packages dropped into yards and hidden in laundry arrive more reliably than official post. The technology that could expose abuse instead sustains dependency. Every inspection report acknowledges the problem. Every budget review ignores the cause. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime concedes that incarceration remains the most consistent environment for illicit drug circulation. Even HM Inspectorate of Prisons admits that 1 in 5 prisoners use regularly. The walls contain bodies, not behaviour. Researchers have long documented this pattern. McKegney described the institutional hypocrisy that allows limited drug use as a safety valve. Crew observed that informal economies inside function as extensions of the formal one, maintaining order through controlled disorder. The language echoes the wider economy of fear discussed in the previous section. Prohibition generates profit by reproducing the very chaos it claims to eliminate. Spice suppliers within prisons mirror pharmaceutical corporations outside. Both thrive on dependency disguised as discipline. The replacement of cannabis with synthetic alternatives demonstrates prohibition's perverse evolution. Boys traced how legitimate bans forced chemists to create ever stronger analogues, each more toxic than the last. Inside prison, where isolation magnifies despair, such substances become perfect sedatives for a neglected population. They reduce not pain but presence. As Marte warned, addiction flourishes wherever sympathy is absent. The prison, by design, is an empathy-free zone. Anarchist analysis reveals why. Prison is not an aberration, but a distillation of the state's logic of care through control. Section 49 showed how the disease model of addiction replaces sin with symptom, where the logic turns punitive again. Treatment programs operate like confessions: abstain, repent, repeat. Those who relapse are sent to segregation. Those who comply are dosed with methadone. The line between therapy and tranquilizer dissolves. As Foucault noted, discipline and medicine share the same architecture: observation, correction, reward. Reform, when proposed, rarely challenges this foundation. Drug-free wings, testing regimes and abstinence incentives all rest on the same fantasy of purity that sustains prohibition outside. What they avoid is the obvious question: why not apply the harm reduction principles that already work in the community? Needle exchanges, supervised consumption rooms, and peer-led recovery circles reduce harm precisely because they replace coercion with consent. Inside, those same methods are deemed too radical. Control cannot afford compassion. Yet examples of alternative practice do exist. In Norway and Portugal, small-scale experiments in therapeutic detention have replaced punishment with partnership, offering inmates education, counselling and work rather than silence. The results are consistent: lower relapse, lower reoffending, fewer deaths. Such models prove that when dignity enters, dependency diminishes. The UK, by contrast, continues to measure success in seizures and headlines. To confront addiction in prisons is to confront society's own double standard. The Friday night economy spills its casualties into A&E with impunity, while a prisoner sharing cannabis faces disciplinary action. The public may scoff at a reform. You can't trust addicts with freedom, yet the system that denies freedom depends on their captivity. As my own son once said after release, they don't want you clean, they want you quiet. That sentence could serve as the epitaph of prohibition itself. Until prisons learn what recovery truly means: autonomy, connection, rhythm, they will remain laboratories of relapse. A policy that cannot keep drugs from a locked ward has no moral claim on the free street. The walls were built for safety. They have become mirrors of our fear. So prohibition doesn't eliminate drugs. It reshapes them into something more dangerous. And prisons prove it. The very system built to enforce control ends up depending on the chaos it claims to prevent. Which means the issue was never just the substances, it's the structure built around them. So if the most controlled places in society can't stop drug use, what does that say about the entire system outside? And if that logic holds, it leads to a bigger problem, one that goes far beyond prisons. So next up, still Chapter 8, Propaganda, Fear and the Myth of the Addict, is Section 63, Counter-Narratives, Truth-Telling and Collective Voices.